Have you ever taken a bite of dark chocolate, telling yourself it is the healthy option while ignoring the metallic aftertaste that lingers at the back of your throat? You reach for a block from Woolworths or Coles, thinking you are feeding your body antioxidants, lowering blood pressure, or making a responsible choice for your kids. The reality is that the block in your hand might be delivering a heavy hit of lead, industrial palm oil, and a supply chain hiding child labour for 30 years. We investigated 18 chocolate brands on Australian supermarket shelves today. 11 failed so spectacularly that you will want to clear your pantry immediately. 7 are clean, ethically sourced, and genuinely worth every cent. By the end of this breakdown, you will know how to spot fake chocolate in 2 seconds, which luxury brand argued in court that its own customers were fools for believing their packaging, and why the worst brand on our skip list is packed into school lunchboxes every week. Before naming a single brand, let's look at how real chocolate is actually made, because the food industry relies on you not knowing the difference. Real chocolate requires just 2 core ingredients: cacao beans and cocoa butter, with maybe a touch of raw sugar and natural vanilla. Cacao beans are harvested, fermented, roasted, and ground into cacao liquor. That liquor is rich in cocoa butter, a precious fat that melts at 36 degrees Celsius, the exact temperature of the human mouth. That precise melting point creates a velvety melt across your tongue without leaving a greasy film behind. Real dark chocolate is packed with flavanols and polyphenols, antioxidants that support heart health and circulation. It is simple, unadulterated, and good for you. So how did the commercial industry turn this into a chemical nightmare? Cost engineering. Cocoa butter is extremely valuable, so major corporations strip it out to sell to the cosmetic industry for face creams. To replace that fat, food engineers dump in cheap palm oil, palm kernel oil, or shea butter. Because alternative vegetable fats do not melt smoothly at mouth temperature, they add chemical emulsifiers like PGPR, a compound derived from castor beans that forces cheap fats and sugar to stick together. To mask the chemical aftertaste, they load the product with refined sugar, corn syrup, and synthetic vanillin, a petroleum derivative mimicking natural vanilla. What you end up eating is a block of hydrogenated vegetable oil and sugar-dyed brown with heavily processed cocoa powder. Then comes the dark side of where cacao beans originate. Over 60% of the world's cocoa supply is harvested in West Africa, predominantly in Ivory Coast and Ghana. For 3 decades, independent journalists and human rights groups have documented systematic child labour on these farms. Children as young as 10 operate machetes, spray toxic pesticides without protective gear, and carry heavy sacks of cocoa pods for pennies a day. Major corporations have signed pledges, published sustainability reports, and printed certification badges on packaging, yet independent audits find child labour remains rife. When you buy a cheap bar, that low price tag is subsidised by the exploitation of vulnerable communities. If human rights violations were not enough, independent laboratory testing from Consumer Reports exposed an immediate physical hazard lurking inside dark chocolate blocks: toxic heavy metals. Cacao plants absorb cadmium directly from contaminated soil, while lead settles on the outer shells of beans as they dry on roadside mats exposed to industrial dust and exhaust. When manufacturers cut corners on washing, sorting, and soil testing, those toxic metals end up directly in the final product. Lead is a neurotoxin that accumulates in human bones and organs over decades. In children, even tiny exposures cause brain damage, behavioral disorders, and lower IQ. In adults, chronic exposure causes kidney damage, nervous system disruption, and cardiovascular disease. When you combine heavy metals, cheap filler fats, synthetic flavourings, and unethical sourcing, the Australian confectionery aisle becomes a chemical minefield. Food conglomerates know that as long as the purple wrapper looks familiar and the gold foil feels fancy, you will keep paying premium prices for hyper-processed industrial waste. They rely on nostalgia to blind you to recipe changes. But today, we are stripping away the marketing, breaking down lab reports, and showing you what you are putting into your body. Let's start with the 11 brands you need to leave on the shelf, starting at number 11. Choclove sits on health food shelves at Harris Farm Markets, Coles, and local organic grocers. It looks beautiful with a warm paper wrapper, a romantic love poem inside, and a price tag of around $6 for a 90-gram bar. Health-conscious shoppers buy it thinking they are treating their bodies right. Their 70% strong dark tastes smooth, and the 88% extreme dark delivers cocoa intensity. But independent lab data published by Consumer Reports sent shockwaves through the health food industry. Their 70% strong dark bar registered 152% of California's maximum allowable dose level for lead, while the 88% extreme dark reached 240%. Both bars recorded elevated cadmium levels. Lead and cadmium do not flush out when you drink water. They bind to bones and tissue, accumulating over decades. In adults, chronic lead exposure drives up blood pressure, impairs kidney function, and damages the central nervous system. In kids, it degrades brain development. Eating just 28 grams of Chocolove Extreme Dark a day puts you past safe environmental limits. Beyond metals, Chocolove's supply chain faces persistent scrutiny over farm transparency in West Africa. You are paying top dollar for romantic poetry, but digesting toxic heavy metal accumulation. Number 10. Cadbury Dairy Milk. Ask any Australian over 25 when Cadbury stopped tasting like real milk chocolate, and they will point straight to 2010. That was the year Kraft Foods acquired British parent company Cadbury for nearly $20 billion before handing operations over to mega conglomerate Mondelez International. To recoup that investment, Mondelez gutted the recipe. Historic UK factories were shuttered, production shifted to low-cost plants in Poland and Egypt, and shrinkflation took hold across Woolworths and Coles shelves. Then came ingredient overhauls. Mondelez slashed cocoa solids and substituted missing cocoa butter with cheap palm oil, shea butter, and massive amounts of white sugar. Palm oil is loaded with saturated fats that increase systemic inflammation. Combined with a 55% sugar ratio, this formulation accelerates metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, and insulin resistance. The block that used to melt into rich creaminess now leaves a waxy coating across the roof of your mouth. The classic purple wrapper stayed the same, but the food inside was replaced with cheap vegetable fat. Number 9. Nestlé. Here is the mental pivot every Aussie shopper needs to make. Nestlé is not a chocolate maker. It is an industrial chemical processor manufacturing chocolate-flavored confections. Classics like Kit Kat, Aero, and Smarties are engineered for shelf life, massive manufacturing scale, and high-margin distribution. Cocoa is merely a minor flavoring agent on their balance sheet. Consider Nestlé's sourcing record. Human rights organizations and journalists have spent 30 years documenting child labor across Nestlé's West African cocoa supply chain. Back in 2001, Nestlé signed the Haken-Engel Protocol, publicly promising to eradicate child labor from its cocoa sourcing. Decades later, independent audits confirm child workers using hazardous tools remain heavily present in those supply chains. Flip over a block of Nestlé Kit Kat from Woolies or Coles. The ingredient deck lists sugar first, wheat flour second, vegetable fat third, and actual cocoa liquor down in fourth place. You are paying hard-earned money for white flour, palm fat, and white sugar dusted with synthetic cocoa powder. Number 8. Toblerone. That triangular yellow box sitting in Australian airport duty-free stores and supermarket aisles promises authentic Swiss heritage at a premium price point of $7. But ever since Mondelez took control of Toblerone, they systematically gutted what made the bar special. The signature honey and almond nougat crunch was reduced, replaced by cheap glucose syrup and dextrose fillers. The texture transformed from crisp snap to a gummy sludge that clings to your molars. Then in 2022, an embarrassing scandal hit. The famous Matterhorn mountain peak disappeared from Toblerone's packaging. Why? Because Mondelez moved primary production out of Switzerland to a low-cost facility in Bratislava, Slovakia. Under strict Swiss legal codes, products not manufactured inside Switzerland are legally banned from using national symbols like the Matterhorn. Mondelez relies on supplier audits that human rights groups repeatedly call out for failing to verify basic child labor standards. You thought you were buying a luxury taste of the Swiss Alps, but you are buying mass-produced Slovakian sugar dough in a deceptively folded box. If you are enjoying this deep dive into supermarket tricks, hit the subscribe button right now. It helps us keep these corporate investigations independent and completely ad-free. Number 7. Ferrero Rocher. Those gold foil pyramids sitting on discount end caps every Christmas sell for over $8 for a 16-piece box. Everything about the visual presentation shouts high-end Italian craftsmanship. When Michele Ferrero created the recipe in 1979, a whole roasted hazelnut sat inside every sphere. But in recent production batches hitting Australian shelves, cost-cutting measures replaced whole hazelnuts with compressed hazelnut fragments, lower-grade rejects, and industrial nut meal. Consumers frequently complain about a waxy mouthful, and lab data explains why. Ferrero stripped out expensive cocoa solids and jacked up hydrogenated palm oil. Natural vanilla extract was dumped in favor of synthetic vanillin, a petroleum-derived compound that smells like artificial ice cream. Each tiny 12.5-gram ball contains 5.3 grams of fat and 4.6 grams of pure sugar. Nearly 80% of every ball is raw palm fat and white sugar, wrapped in shiny gold foil. You are paying luxury prices for cheap fat and synthetic perfume. Number 6 takes us to a brand that built an empire on a Belgian fairy tale, until consumer watchdog lawsuits forced them to pay out millions. Godiva. Packed in iconic gold boxes with velvet ribbons, Godiva is sold across David Jones, Myer, and boutique gift shops as the ultimate luxury gift, costing upwards of $30 for a tiny assortment. But Godiva chocolates sold in Australia are not imported from Belgium. They are mass-manufactured in industrial plants in Reading, Pennsylvania. In 2019, a class action lawsuit was launched against Godiva for deceptive advertising regarding false Belgian heritage claims, resulting in a multi-million-dollar legal settlement. Flip over a gift box and read the fine print. High fructose corn syrup, palm oil, and PGPR fill out the ingredient list where pure cocoa butter belongs. To make matters worse, Consumer Reports lab testing found elevated levels of toxic lead in Godiva dark chocolate products. You are dropping $30 on a box of Pennsylvania-made palm oil, heavy metal contamination, and artificial emulsifiers dressed up in an expensive gold box dot. Number 5 targets shoppers who think they are making a healthy, diabetic-friendly choice. Russell Stover. Available at Chemist Warehouse, Priceline, and pharmacies, Russell Stover positions its sugar-free line as a guilt-free alternative for people managing diabetes or cutting carbs. But take a close look at their sugar-free mint patties. The primary sweetening agent is maltitol, a cheap sugar alcohol, combined with hydrogenated palm kernel oil and sorbitol. Maltitol has a glycemic index that causes blood glucose spikes, directly endangering diabetic consumers who trust the sugar-free claim on the packet. Furthermore, when maltitol and sorbitol are combined with processed vegetable fats, they act as a potent osmotic laxative. Eat 3 or 4 of these candies and you can expect severe abdominal cramps, violent bloating, and hours trapped on the toilet. Regular sugar versions are no better, loaded with high fructose corn syrup and low-grade cocoa waste. Russell Stover uses pharmacy placement to trick vulnerable consumers into buying chemical laxatives disguised as healthy treats. Number 4, Lindt Excellence. This is the sleek block sitting on every Australian desk or pantry shelf. With Excellence printed in gold lettering across the front, Lindt commands a premium price of $7 a block at Coles and Woolies. But when Consumer Reports published its heavy metal testing of 28 major dark chocolate brands, Lindt Excellence was hit hard. Multiple Lindt Excellence blocks showed unsafe levels of lead and cadmium. What Lindt did next in federal court is the real scandal. When disgruntled consumers sued Lindt for misleading marketing regarding their premium safety and quality claims, Lindt's corporate lawyers stood up before a judge and argued that words like excellence, finest ingredients, and expertly crafted were merely exaggerated puffery, stating that no reasonable consumer should take those label claims literally. Read that again. Lindt officially told a court of law that if you believed the quality promises printed on their packaging, you were an unreasonable fool. If their own lawyers admit their quality claims are legal puffery, why should anyone trust their unverified sustainability badges? Number 3 brings us to the titan dominating global corporate confectionery, Hershey's. Hershey's products have flooded Australian candy aisles, Big W stores, and petrol stations over the last decade. But when Consumer Reports tested Hershey's special dark, mildly sweet chocolate, the lab results were terrifying. Lead content registered at an astonishing 265% of California's maximum allowable dose level. That is more than 2.5 times the safe daily limit in a single bar. Beyond heavy metals, Hershey's has spent years fending off human rights lawsuits over child labor in its Ivory Coast cocoa supply chain. Despite hauling in over $11 billion in global revenue, Hershey's continues to pump out cheap, metal-laced chocolate while issuing empty corporate statements about ethics. Then there is the taste. Millions of Australians who try Hershey's milk chocolate complain that it smells and tastes distinctly like sour milk or vomit. That is chemistry. Hershey's intentionally uses a process called lipolysis during milk processing, which creates butyric acid, the exact chemical compound responsible for the stench of human vomit and rancid butter. America's favorite chocolate is engineered to taste like vomit, laced with toxic lead, and produced using unverified supply chains. At number 2, we have America's favorite peanut butter treat, imported into almost every Australian supermarket, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. A few years ago, Brad Reese, the direct grandson of H.B. Reese, who created the original recipe, published a furious open letter accusing corporate parent Hershey's of committing flat-out ingredient fraud. He was right. Hershey's stripped out the real milk chocolate coating and replaced it with what the FDA defines as a chocolatey coating, an artificial compound made from hydrogenated vegetable oils, PGPR emulsifiers, and synthetic cocoa powder. They cannot legally put the word chocolate on the package because there is virtually no cocoa butter inside. Then they targeted the center, replacing real roasted peanut butter with a cheap peanut-flavored compound paste made from hydrogenated palm oil and sugar. You are paying full price for fake chocolate wrapped around imitation peanut butter, loaded with trans fats that drive up bad LDL cholesterol and trigger systemic inflammation. And now, the single worst brand on our list. Number 1. Parma. You see Parma everywhere during Easter, Halloween, and Christmas. They make foil-wrapped Easter bunnies, Santa figures, and discount eyeballs sitting on the shelves at Big W, Kmart, The Reject Shop, and discount tobacconists across Australia. Millions of Aussie parents buy these holiday treats for their kids every year, assuming they are buying chocolate. But Parma does not make chocolate. If you read the microscopic text on the back of a Parma Easter bunny, you will never see the word chocolate. Instead, it says choco-flavored candy or chocolatey. Under food standards regulations, Parma cannot legally call its products chocolate because they contain zero cocoa butter. The entire product is made from hydrogenated palm kernel oil, raw white sugar, PGPR, synthetic vanillin, and alkalized cocoa powder. When your kid bites into a Parma bunny, they are chewing on a waxy block of solid palm fat and industrial sugar engineered to mimic chocolate flavor. Hydrogenated palm kernel oil is packed with trans fats that contribute directly to arterial plaque buildup and metabolic dysfunction in developing children. Parma sits at number 1 because their business model relies on tricking parents into feeding cheap industrial oil to their children under the guise of a holiday treat. Right, here comes the part that made watching this far worth it. You do not have to give up chocolate to protect your body from heavy metals, industrial palm oils, and human rights abuses. You just need to know which makers actually respect the bean, respect farming communities, and respect your health. We analysed lab data and supply chain audits to find 7 outstanding chocolate brands sitting on Australian supermarket shelves right now. These range from accessible everyday staples to world-class local craft blocks, proving that clean ingredients and ethical sourcing exist for every budget. Starting at number 7, Green & Black's Organic Dark. Available at Woolworths and Coles for around $6 a block, Green & Black's was founded on a commitment to organic farming and fair trade sourcing. Their 70% and 85% organic dark blocks contain no palm oil, cheap vegetable fats, artificial emulsifiers, or synthetic vanillin. The ingredient list is short: organic cocoa mass, organic cocoa butter, organic raw cane sugar, and organic vanilla. When you break a piece off, there is a clean snap signaling proper tempering. On the palate, it delivers a rich cacao flavor with a smooth melt driven by real cocoa butter. Lab testing confirms their heavy metal profile remains well within safe international guidelines. It is the simplest entry-level upgrade for your everyday shopping trip. Number 6. Tony's Chocolonely. You have seen these thick, brightly wrapped blocks in Coles and Woolworths for $8 for a massive 180-gram bar. Tony's was founded by an investigative journalist to eradicate child labor from West African cocoa supply chains. They pay farmers a living income premium above fair trade baselines, trace every bean directly from partner cooperatives, and conduct complete audits. Their 70% extra dark block uses pure cocoa butter, cocoa mass, and sugar with zero palm fat additives. The texture is dense, thick, and satisfyingly chunky, giving a deep melt without greasy residue. Because the bar is so large, it works out to under $4.50 per 100 grams, making it exceptionally economical. Number 5. Alter Eco. Available at Woolies, Coles, and Harris Farm Markets for $6.50, Alter Eco is a gold standard for clean dark chocolate. This brand is USDA certified organic, fair trade certified, and packaged in fully compostable wrappers. When independent labs raised concerns about soil cadmium in South America, Alter Eco shifted sourcing to low cadmium soil zones to guarantee safety. Their dark blackout 85% block contains just 4 ingredients: organic cacao, organic cocoa butter, organic raw cane sugar, and organic vanilla beans. The flavor is velvety with notes of dark plum and espresso. At under $7, it offers the best balance of safety, environmental ethics, and taste on mainstream Australian shelves. Number 4. Panna Organic. Handcrafted in Australia and sold at Coles, Woolies, and health food stores for $7 for an 80-gram block, Panna Organic treats cacao as a health food rather than an industrial commodity. Panna uses raw, unroasted organic cacao combined with cold-pressed virgin cacao butter and coconut sugar. Because the cacao is never exposed to high-temperature roasting, it retains maximum levels of natural polyphenols and flavonols. The texture is luxurious, melting instantly on the tongue like a truffle. There are no dairy derivatives, gluten, soy lecithin, or refined sugars in the facility. For a clean, decadent raw treat, Panna is superb. Number 3. Loving Earth. Made in Melbourne and sold across Coles, Woolworths, and health food stores for $6.50, Loving Earth is a pioneer of sustainable Australian craft chocolate. Their unroasted dark line is sourced directly from indigenous Ashaninka communities in the Peruvian Amazon via direct trade partnerships, protecting native rainforest biodiversity. Their 72% dark bar uses 3 ingredients: organic raw cacao nibs, organic cacao butter, and organic coconut nectar. Lab checks show pristine purity with 0 synthetic chemicals, heavy metal contamination, or industrial emulsifiers. The taste is bright, fruity, and raw with a clean finish, representing pure nutrition. Number 2. Bohannon Company. Operating out of a historic farm in Western Australia's Margaret River region, Bohannon Company is a masterclass in traditional bean-to-bar craftsmanship. Founded by a former winemaker, they use restored 1930s Spanish equipment to stone-grind single-origin cacao beans. Found at Harris Farm Markets, David Jones, and specialty boutiques for $10 a block, their 70% Madagascar or Papua New Guinea blocks contain 2 ingredients: organic cacao and organic cane sugar. They skip added cocoa butter entirely, relying on natural bean fats. The taste is an explosion of terroir, bright citrus, honey, and earthy oak that linger long after dissolving. One square delivers more real flavour than a block of supermarket candy. And finally, our top recommendation, Hunted Plus Gathered. Crafted in Melbourne and available at David Jones, specialty grocers, and online, Hunted Plus Gathered produces what is objectively the purest chocolate in Australia. They source single-origin organic cacao directly from smallholder farmers in Ecuador and Bolivia. Their dark chocolate range relies on a strict 2-ingredient formula: organic cacao beans and organic coconut sugar. No added fats, no soy, no lecithin, no vanilla flavorings, and 0 heavy metal red flags in independent lab tests. The snap is crisp, the melt clean, and the flavor profile deeply satisfying. At $11 a block, it is a premium purchase, but for absolute purity, total supply chain transparency, and uncompromised health benefits, Hunted Plus Gathered is worth every cent. Now that you know which blocks are worth your money, here are 6 bulletproof rules to protect yourself every time you walk down the supermarket aisle at Woolworths, Coles, or Aldi. Rule 1. Turn the packet around and read the first ingredient immediately. If sugar, glucose syrup, or vegetable fat appears before cocoa liquor, cocoa mass, or cacao, put it straight back on the shelf. Rule 2. Look for the word chocolate on the front cover. If the packaging uses words like chocolatey, choco-flavored, or compound confection, you are looking at hydrogenated palm oil and emulsifiers engineered to mimic real cocoa butter. Rule 3. Reject palm oil and PGPR. Pure chocolate requires cocoa butter as its primary fat source. Cheap vegetable fats and industrial emulsifiers exist solely to cut manufacturing costs. Rule 4. Check the cocoa percentage. Aim for 70% cocoa or higher to ensure you get authentic antioxidant health benefits without a massive sugar load. Rule 5. Look for third-party certifications like USDA Organic or Fair Trade, or choose bean-to-bar makers who publish their farm sourcing data directly on their websites. Rule 6. Do not let fancy packaging or gold foil fool you. Some of the most expensive gift boxes in Australian department stores contain cheap palm oil and elevated levels of lead. The food industry relies on your nostalgia to sell you hyper-processed industrial sweets disguised as traditional treats. Corporate conglomerates have spent decades cutting costs, substituting real cocoa butter with cheap palm fat, hiding heavy metal contamination, and ignoring supply chain child labor. But as a consumer, you hold complete power over your wallet. Every time you refuse to buy ultra-processed compound candy and choose a clean, ethically made block from a transparent producer, you force the market to change. Thank you for spending your time with us today. If this investigative report opened your eyes and helped you shop smarter, please share this video with a friend or family member who buys chocolate for their household. They deserve to know what is actually inside those wrappers. Drop a comment below and tell us, which of these 11 Skip brands is sitting in your pantry right now, and which clean alternative are you going to try first? Subscribe to the channel for more independent product breakdowns. Stop buying fake chocolate, read your labels, and we will see you in the next investigation.